This is like one thing spectacular.
We're gonna change.
That's usually gonna change it.
Really wants to do this.
Good evening, Pueblo, Colorado. Pueblo City Council will now commence this work session. It is Monday, February 2nd, 2026, 5:30 p.m. We'd like to begin our meeting today with some city updates. The chair will acknowledge Mayor Heather Graham for city updates for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Ruiz Gomez. Tonight at your stations, you will find your state of the city. Please accept this as my official communication to City Council with the state of the city. By charter, it is due today that I hand this over to you today. Tomorrow at 4:30, I will be having a more extensive presentation, including a speech, and then we will have multiple city departments at the convention center that we're inviting the entire community to come and participate and kind of have more of a hands-on state of the city. The speech that I'm going to give tomorrow is about 30 minutes. So that will start about 5 o'clock. So I would love to have all of city council come by and hear the speech, talk to the departments, and I welcome you and hope to see you tomorrow night. And that concludes my updates, and happy to take any direction from City Council.
Chair will open up any questions to the council. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Okay, we will move right along. See, the chair will now recognize Gil Romero. Is he ready on Zoom?
I am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Madam Mayor, President Aliff, Chair of the Madam Chair. We would like to talk to you about some legislation that we believe will impact Pueblo. We wanted to talk to you tonight and hopefully ask City Council to take positions on these bills. I'm sure you'll probably hear from the police chief on these issues, but we wanted to bring to your attention 4 bills regarding privacy and surveillance legislation. The Colorado General Assembly is considering 3 closely related bills that would significantly change how cities and law enforcement may use traffic cameras, license plate readers, surveillance tools, location data, and commercially available personal data. While each bill is framed around strengthening privacy protections, taken together, they raise meaningful concerns for local control, public safety operations, compliance costs, and legal risks for municipalities like Pueblo. And I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. As Gil mentioned, Alec and I are going to cover 4 bills. The first 2 are somewhat opposites. The first one is House Bill 1071, Local Use of Automated Vehicle Identification Systems. This bill authorizes local governments to install and operate automated vehicle identification systems, otherwise known as AVIS, such as speed or traffic enforcement cameras on interstate highways within their jurisdiction, removing the existing restriction that limits this authority to the state. For municipalities, this bill matters because it expands local control over traffic safety tools on interstate corridors that often experience high speeds, serious crashes, or congestion, but are difficult to police through traditional enforcement alone. If adopted locally, AVIS could support speed compliance, work zone safety, and crash reduction without requiring additional police staffing, though it also raises considerations around program costs, administration, and public acceptance of automated enforcement. And the second bill, as I mentioned, is kind of the opposite of this. It's trying to restrict some of the authority that municipalities have. And this bill is Senate Bill 71. The title is Surveillance Accountability and Freedom Insured Act. Senate Bill 71 establishes a statewide regulatory framework for law enforcement use of surveillance technologies, including traffic cameras, automated license plate readers, drones, and similar systems. The bill sets clear rules on how data may be collected, stored, shared, and retained, limits use to public safety or active investigations, and requires governing body approval, public transparency reporting, and attorney general audits. Municipalities may care about this bill because it directly affects how cities deploy and oversee modern public safety technologies, this will create or is intending to create consistent privacy and civil liberty guardrails, but it also introduces new compliance reporting and oversight responsibilities for cities that already use or are considering using these tools. And just before I pass it to Alec, we did send a brief overview of the 4 bills we're discussing tonight. The hyperlink in those, if you'd like to get more information, that you should be able to click on the hyperlink to read the full bill text, or feel free to reach out to any of us for more information. And with that, I'll let Alec explain the last 2 bills. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Good evening to the mayor and members of council. Both of the bills I'll be presenting affect how long data can be kept, how it can be shared, and how quickly it can be used in regard to public safety. So the first bill is Senate Bill 70, Ban Government Access to Historical Location Information Database Information. So this really focuses on historical location data. So essentially information showing where a person or a vehicle was in the past. That includes license plates, reader data, cell phone location data, and similar tracking tools. The key shift in this bill is time. Real-time use is largely preserved. However, that ability to look backward becomes much more limited. So under this bill, accessing location data more than 24 hours old generally requires a warrant or documented exception, and most data must be deleted within 4 days unless tied to an active case. So this provision really limits pattern-based investigations, things like identifying repeat offenders, tracking stolen vehicles over time, and discovering crime patterns weeks later. The other main component of this bill that could have an impact within PUBO's Real-Time Crime Center is in regard to the license plate readers and other tools that generate historical location data where retention and look-back analysis and data sharing would be limited. Their long-term investigative value would be reduced because historical data cannot be retained or shared as freely. And lastly, the third main component of this bill is the restriction on regional coordination. This bill restricts sharing location data across jurisdictions, which could complicate coordination on regional crimes or suspects who have moved across the city or across county lines. And the second bill I would like to flag for council is House Bill 26-1037, Ban Government Purchase of Personal Data from Third Parties. So this prohibits law enforcement and government entities from purchasing personal data from third parties or sharing such data between agencies in connection with criminal, civil, or investigation activities. The bill defines personal data broadly to include names, addresses, browsing history, geolocation data, biometric identifiers, and other information. Exceptions are provided for situations involving judicial warrants, emergencies threatening life or safety, publicly available information, and when individuals provide express consent. So the city likely pays for public safety software, traffic systems, analytics tools, and license plate reader platforms that may involve access to data through subscriptions or service contracts. So this bill will change how those vendor-based hosted tools can be used. So if the RTCC relies on paid platforms that aggregate or store this personal data, officers may need a warrant or consent before accessing that data, even though the city has already has a contract for that software. So in closing, both bills aim to protect privacy, but from a municipal perspective, they really raise questions about local control. and in investigative effectiveness. They directly affect how the city investigates crime and manages public safety technology. While access is still allowed under specific conditions, including warrants, consent, emergencies, or limited statutory uses, these bills move the warrant requirement earlier in the investigative process and restrict exploratory or retrospective use of data that police often rely on to identify patterns or suspects. So that shift in timing really matters because many investigations depend on limited historical review to determine whether a warrant is justified. And so these bills really make it harder to do that quickly and efficiently. And so that concludes my comments for this evening. I'll turn it
And
back
Madam-
over to council for questions. Oh, back to Gil.
And Madam Chair, what we're asking council is on House Bill 1071, which is sponsored by Representative Morrow from Pueblo. We're asking the city to take a position of support on that bill, and then the other three bills, and it's consistent with CML. We're asking the city of Pueblo to take a position of oppose. And obviously, I know the council probably wants to discuss this with you, with the police chief and other law enforcement entities, but we would like to, at some point, as soon as possible, list Pueblo's position on these four bills. Thank you.
Right. The chair will now open up time for discussion. Anybody have questions for the presenters? The chair will recognize Counselor Dante.
Yes, I didn't catch, which one was it that you wanted us to oppose?
So the bills that we'd like you to oppose are Senate Bill 71, Senate Bill 70, and House Bill 1037. The first one actually that Ryan described expands local authority and is helpful to the city. And that one we're asking the city to support, and that one is House Bill 1071. And they are in your bill folders or your bill tracker.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other? Chair will recognize Counselor Hernandez.
Mayor, any time that we might hear from the police chief on this?
I was gonna ask Mr. Romero, when is your deadline for this? This is some of we have some new city councilors here tonight, and so I'm not sure if they're aware of our previous process. Sometimes we would pass entire resolutions. Sometimes we will just circle a letter for each individual councilor to sign on. Our next regular meeting is on next Monday. We could probably do a late ad of a resolution if this could wait. I know that resolutions supported by an entire council are a little bit more impactful than just a letter. So do you have a time frame that you need these by?
Thank you, Mayor Graham. Actually, the four bills haven't been calendared yet.
Okay.
So we have some time on these, and obviously, the bills have to go through the process, and it's a long process through both the House and the Senate, the two bills starting in the Senate and the two bills starting in the House. So you have at least a week. We just want to try to make sure that we're able to get to committee members to lobby on behalf of the city of Pueblo. And we obviously, as you're gathering that support, we certainly would like, some sort of statement from the police chief on impact to public safety in Pueblo would be helpful.
We can prepare resolutions for support or oppose. And I can have Chief Noller next Monday come and give you a little bit of background about what it will do to our real-time crime center in the resolution section. If that
Thank you.
is okay with everybody.
Thank you, Mayor.
Great.
Thank you.
I don't have a question for them. I have one for the mayor.
Chair will recognize Counselor Dante.
I have a question for the mayor. He was talking about a tracking system.
So these are the LPRs, license plate readers. So these are ran through our real-time crime center.
I
If
thought
we
he was
have,
talking about a physical tracking system of the bills,
The bill track.
the bill tracker.
Yeah, so that was emailed out. So generally what the Romeros do is when they monitor these bills, they'll send an email once a week, and that's kind of it's easy. One pager explains all the bills, where it's at. The ones that you give direction for that are important to the city, the ones that we're watching are included on that as well. If you want something a little more in depth, I could put that together, but it'll be a weekly, sometimes
Does
more.
everybody have access to that right now? Or do any of you need help getting the bill tracker information?
Is that the hot bills report?
Yes, the hot bills report.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
can make sure you have it,
Yeah,
Counselor Dante, if you do not.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, and I got in my email. I thought it was more of a spreadsheet type thing.
Okay.
okay. And I could put it together however you want, you're comfortable looking at it. I could even print it out for you and give it to you. So-
I think I'm fine.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Have any questions? Is it good of the order? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we will move on with our agenda. We'd like to welcome Mr. Kevin Brommer from Colorado Municipal League. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Brommer. The chair will recognize you for 90 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and council members, mayor, staff. My name is Kevin Baumer. I'm the executive director of the Colorado Municipal League. It's my pleasure to be back in Pueblo. It's been far too long. I remember I've been with the league long enough. I remember when we had an annual conference here back in 2003. So the league is no stranger to spending time in Pueblo, and you've been wonderful hosts of CML district meetings. I'm going to talk a little bit about CML, especially for the new council members. And then just a little bit about my role here this evening. I know that we have a mix of both newly elected and seasoned vets. And we always want to try to provide an opportunity to talk about best practices for elected officials. And it would be the same whether I was in Norwood, Colorado, or Pueblo or Denver, because there are common threads that go between that. So it is for you to take from it what you like, and I hope I can provide some helpful background. If you have any questions at any point in time, just please holler at me. And even though it's not part of the presentation, I'll pause real quick when we get to the right spot and just mention a couple things about the legislation you just heard about. So real quick, just an overview of municipalities in Colorado. This is just a hair outdated. This was in our annual report from last year, because if you saw the recent news, Colorado has crested 6 million in population. And with that, some of the other numbers will change along with it. But 3/4 of the state of Colorado lives within an incorporated municipality. 108 of those 273 total municipalities in the state are home rule municipalities, home rule cities or towns, just like the city of Pueblo. The most recent one being the town of Superior. And interestingly, the city of Cripple Creek, one of the 3 gaming towns, currently has a charter commission that was approved by voters, and they'll be voting on a proposed charter here in their April election, it seems. In any event, the rest of those that aren't home rule are statutory municipalities, statutory cities, like the city of Florence, not too far away. About 11 of those, and the rest are statutory towns. There are 2 towns in the state of Colorado that are officially incorporated, but basically are ghost towns at this point. Those are the 2 of the 164 that are not currently members of CML. And then here's a fun bit of trivia. If you're at a party where people, and I don't know what kind of party this is, but where people like talking about municipal things, if you get a chance to ask a question to stump your friends about the one territorial charter town in the state that is a town that is still operating under the charter that it had prior to Colorado statehood, so more than 150 years ago. Any guesses which the one that is? The train runs through it. It's not Pueblo. You're a home rule city, Joe. Not La Junta, home rule city. We could do this all day. It's the town of Georgetown. And interestingly, Georgetown has to amend its charter by going to the state legislature, as all municipalities did until they gave up their territorial charters and fell under the state statutes. And then when home rule came along later, that exempts some activities of municipalities from state statutes. But the real deep dive here is it was having to go to the legislature that is the reason we have the home rule amendment to the Constitution. The state legislature, in its infinite wisdom in the late 1800s, kept playing political football with Denver's charter. And Denver had not gone under state statutes, and it led to a senator convincing his colleagues to refer a question to voters in 1902 to create to establish Denver as a home rule city, and the home rule amendment to the Constitution, which has been amended over time. So all roads lead to Georgetown, I guess, but it was interesting that the Denver experience actually led to people pointing guns at each other, state militia and Denver police and firefighters with guns pointed at each other over the state's interference. And thankfully, we see more peaceful resolutions. No shots were fired, thankfully, but now we do it in the court of political opinion. Anyway, that's a snapshot of Colorado municipalities. 271, all of the functioning municipalities in Colorado are members of the Colorado Municipal League. The league is a nonprofit, nonpartisan association of all of Colorado's municipalities, established a little over 100 years ago on the campus of CU Boulder. A lot of state leagues were established through university extension offices at the time, like CU, before they became independent. The league is governed by a 21-member executive board, arranged by population category, that is elected at large at our annual conference. And the reason that's important is whether you're someone running from a small, medium, large, or the three largest municipalities, you are in an at-large election at the annual business meeting at our conference, which means you can't just count on the folks in your similarly sized municipality to vote for you. And I think that has given our board strength over the years in having a great statewide perspective as to the experience of municipalities around the state. We have a small staff of 17, and I don't think it's going to grow anymore because the building that we have, I'm going to skip by the strategic plan. The building that we have isn't getting any bigger. It is your building. It is just a few blocks south of the state capitol. And I say it's your building because it was literally built for our members, and it exists because of our members. Again, it is a nonpartisan place to be. If you are ever in Denver and you have business to do, even if it's not municipal business, let us know ahead of time if you need a place to stop, do a little work, make a phone call or whatever. It's a wonderful building, and I've been pleased to be working there for nearly 27 years now. Resources that are available to you. Some of these you are likely already receiving, primarily our biweekly CML newsletter. And if you are interested in what's happening in the State House report and in the State House from CML's overall perspective, you can sign up for, if you're not already receiving, our State House report that comes out every Monday. And please shoot me an email or email cml@cml.org, and we can get you hooked up. We offer not just information, also training. Our annual conference, we do multiple workshops and seminars, some in person, some hybrid, some remote. And then our district meetings that are in the spring and the fall, which are opportunities to network with your colleagues from other municipalities. And hopefully we can be back in Pueblo soon. You will also get our wonderful magazine quarterly, and I hope you take time to you get a hard copy of that. I hope you take time to get into that. So our annual conference, the premier training event for municipal officials. It is an opportunity to meet your colleagues from around the state in a 4-day conference, 3.5 days that is focused on sessions that will help you learn not just from those presenting, but also from the experiences of others. We provide plenty of networking opportunities. We were in Breckenridge last year. We'll be in Westminster this year and in Keystone next year. So please stay tuned on our website. We're just about to release the full program here soon, and it's going to be a good one. Okay, so let me just, before I get into the effective governance part of the discussion, I just want to mention briefly, since you had your advocacy report, the Avis bill that Gil and his folks mentioned that he asked for support on. That was actually a CML initiated bill. In our policy development process, we ask or offer the opportunity for members to request legislation that then goes through our policy committee and then ultimately to our board if approved. And the city of Wheat Ridge requested that because they found that they were having to respond, their police department, to multiple accidents on I-70, mostly speed related. And they would like to have the opportunity, if the state isn't going to do it, to place systems there to help slow folks down. So that is something that's made it through our process, and we were pleased to have it introduced. The other bills that were mentioned, 71, we're in a bit of a deliberation stage right now, but I fully expect that the board will authorize opposition to that bill. It'll be going to our policy committee. We're actually seeking amendments on Senate Bill 70, and I will make sure I share those with I'll make sure my team shares them with Gil, but also that we share them with the city staff here so that you have awareness of what we're asking for. And finally, on the last one, House Bill 1037, we have a position of opposition on that. Okay, so effective governance. Again, let me just preface this by saying you all have come into your positions here at different times in different ways. You know your districts better than certainly I do. I am merely here to provide you maybe some higher level things to consider in terms of how you approach your interactions with each other, with residents, and again with the mayor and the staff. So just a few, and some of this is going to be like, yeah, I already know this, but I think it's okay to acknowledge what it takes to do what you do and what will be expected of you. You are required to have dedication, knowledge, and obviously a significant time commitment. I think you all knew that. Council members and mayors have the opportunity to make significant contributions towards the future of a city. And it can be rewarding. There will be times when you'll say, I don't think that's true. And that goes with elected office. But thinking about that future and what the future of the city will look like is important. There's a saying, I mess it up every time, but you will be planting trees under which you will likely never sit under the shade of. Yours is the longest term perspective because you are hopefully thinking far enough ahead that you will be making decisions that you think about your predecessors, the vision of the Riverwalk and some of the important things that have happened. Those weren't just something that happened. We decided to do it one day and it happened the next day. It took time and planning and thinking about the future of the city. So make sure you take the time to commit to what it takes to be effective, balancing the needs of the city with your own personal views, because I'll come to a couple of slides later that talk about just how to manage the differences that you will most certainly have. and learning about municipal government in Colorado. So I want to be very clear, nothing I say should ever be a substitute for legal advice. One, because I'm not an attorney, and two, I'm not the city's attorney. But you should also take the time to read and understand your charter. Check and learn about applicable laws in the Colorado Revised Statutes, your own ordinances, and then asking appropriate staff for additional information, clarification, resources. And it's, it's not like one of those NBC, the more you know commercials, but I mean, it really is. If you take the time to read and understand those things, ask questions when something doesn't make sense or seems to conflict with something else, it can actually help expedite your deliberations and your discussion. Do you have the right stuff? This is not a checklist where you have to check all the boxes, but these are examples of desirable leadership skills. And starting with just a general understanding of what municipal government can do, and also importantly, what it can't do. You have to learn about a wide range of topics. There may be some things you're very interested in. You're going to have to consider a whole lot of other things that may not be at the highest level of interest. Integrity, consistency, confidence. Be confident. And your dedication to the interests, not just your own, not just your district, or if you're at large, the whole city, but think about the entire city regardless. Be a good listener, talk to other people, be open to their thoughts, and be willing to be accessible and work cooperatively. You wear a lot of hats in an elected official role, and you are all of these things, and sometimes several of them at the same time. The important thing to remember is whether in this chamber, whether walking around, whether out of town, you are always wearing these hats. There's been some news lately from a couple of municipalities in the state where we had some elected officials that may have strayed away, forgotten that they were always wearing those hats and acting in what they thought and was a right thing to do. But by not remembering that they were still elected officials, it has created some problematic circumstances. I'm talking about, if you've read what's going on down in Telluride and Mountain Village, with some resignations that occurred. And it's unfortunate because they were good public servants. So good governance starts with understanding the difference between governance and administration. And so to sort of kick that off, you must acknowledge, if you haven't realized it already, this is unlike probably everything you do, certainly in your private life, in your private pursuits. And it's going to feel a lot different, especially in your first term. But your main goals are to maximize your effectiveness. At the same time, you are minimizing potential liability. And it starts with understanding governance versus administration, how your personal conduct affects yourself, the organization, and the body, and that you are committed to transparency and openness in the conduct of your meetings. So when it comes to governance administration, it's important to understand that management is not governance. Governance is big picture, policy setting, painting the big picture on the canvas, rather than individual case-by-case decisions that may be beyond the purview of an individual council member. Now, the exception here is quasi-judicial, and that should be very clearly explained to you what the difference there is, which is case by case. And there are very different rules when it comes to quasi-judicial proceedings. And like I said, I'm not here for legal advice. That is where your city attorney will absolutely advise you the differences, and if that has not happened already. So the important thing is, and even in a mayor council, strong mayor city in Pueblo, it would be the same if it was a council manager form of government. The council as a body does not have authority over subordinates to direct reports. And certainly individuals of the governing body don't have authority beyond the direct reports. So think about it in terms of time horizons. Yours should be the furthest out. Again, policy setting, vision for the future. This is governance. You own that. That is something that as a body, as the city council, in conjunction with the mayor, should be in the business of developing. The management, the supervision, the frontline employees, those are steps removed. And if you are jumping too far ahead, then it will impact your effectiveness. And this is where it can get a little dicey. First of all, it's important to, and this is the hardest thing, one of the hardest things. It's important to be able to provide clear direction for the people that are carrying out the policies established by the city, by the governing body, through the mayor and the city council. Even if you are on the short end of a decision, while certainly you have every right to articulate why you may not support something, it is important to acknowledge that when a vote has occurred, when a decision has been made, that that you can say the council voted to. Because if you say, I'm going to do everything I can to tear this down, no matter what, every chance I get, it creates a lot of uncertainty. It creates a lot of dissension and concern. So if you can speak with one voice, even acknowledging that it may not be a policy I support, but the council voted to, the mayor agreed, and we are moving forward in this direction, that is very liberating and very encouraging to the staff that has to then go forward and carry out that policy without wondering if it might change tomorrow. So everything and anything you can to minimize that uncertainty is important. It also has liability concerns. Now, again, I'm not an attorney, I'm not your attorney, but just as a basic, public officials have protection from liability when you are within the scope of your employment, which means everyone has to respect the parameters of what that means. And if you're uncertain about that, ask, because the individual and the individual liability for the city as a whole can be impacted by a confusion between governance and administration. Now, it has to get pretty pervasive, but it can lead to that. So just my last word on this, make sure your focus is the farthest out, focus on governance, the policy decisions, and not on the day-to-day management. There are at least 10, maybe more, roles of elected office. These are the 10 I can think of. They seem fairly self-explanatory. I will move pretty quickly through each one of them because I think, first of all, you'll have access to these slides afterwards, but I also think they should make logical sense when you put them together. So your first role is to set public policy. Again, you have to understand what you as a council can do, what the city as a whole can do, and also an understanding through discussion, through likely disagreement sometimes, but an understanding what is in the best interests of the public and the city. You always want to be professional. The public expects an efficient government, even if decorum sometimes breaks down in public comment or otherwise. The council and the mayor should always be the example of what respect and decorum looks like. Utilize your staff expertise. These are trained professionals, experts in their field, and they can help inform decisions that you need to that you will be asked to make. Avoid personal commentary as much as possible and stick to the issues. Be accountable. Once you are elected, council members represent all constituents. Yes, at large and district, I understand that. But again, if you are thinking about what's good for the city as a whole, starting with what you know about for those that are from districts, what you know about your district, it's that helps with accountability. Residents have a right to be heard. They need to understand that you are listening to what they're saying and acknowledge that in the right way. There are wrong ways for the public to engage, and so you have you have the right to say what the right way is. But public involvement is absolutely critical for this process, for the legitimacy of the governing process. Be a big picture thinker. So again, make decisions that have a long-term impact on the city. And significant ones. You will be asked to make some that will have a significant short-term impact, to be sure. But always try to think in that big picture. What does this mean for the future? Not just tomorrow, but 5 or 10 years from now. Think beyond what the constraints are, fiscal constraints, political constraints. Try to find opportunities to connect with each other in relationships. Maybe someone might support something that you don't know that they will because you haven't spent the time to find out more about what they're thinking. And maybe there's compromise there. Be a good steward. Again, listen and respect to the residents and represent those to the best of your interests. But sometimes you will have to make or be asked to make decisions that are uncomfortable because you may decide that the right decision may be counter to what people are telling you should do. And that is, again, one of the tougher parts of the job. But if you can justify your decision and that you are making it for the greater good and the common vision, that doesn't necessarily mean people are going to go, oh, okay, you're right. But you should have the confidence to know that is the reason for your decision. So be an advocate as well. You're a customer service representative because when you are around the city, people bump into you and they might ask you about something. You can be a great conduit to connecting people with the things that the city provides, meetings that are coming up, opportunities to engage. Residents see you and the mayor as the most responsive to their concerns. You are the center of the organizational universe, which will create conflict sometime because someone will come to you and say, I need you to fix the pothole in front of my house. Well, unless you've got a bucket of asphalt and a shovel, you're not the right person. But if you can connect them to say, hey, here's who you need to call, or better yet, I'll let someone know and they'll reach out to you. That is what I'm talking about. You have to be a decision maker. There's no maybe votes. Abstentions are for the right reasons are obviously make sense if you have a conflict of interest or whatever, but you have to vote yes or no. And it is somewhat like being a judge, even outside of the quasi judicial, you have to decide, is this worthy of my yes vote? Yes or no? It's important to be decisive and to be able to justify why you're making your decision, and then stick with it. Again, be vigilant of the proper roles of the governing body. This is the governance versus administration. And you are different because of the mayor council form of government. It's important to understand what those differences are. When I have this similar presentation with pretty much every other municipality in the state's council manager form of government, it's a little bit different discussion because of the direct oversight that the council as a whole has over direct reports. So it's important to understand where those limitations and opportunities are. Last but not least, be ethical. I know that you've all got the CIRSA CML ethics book. Please read it. If you have questions, please ask. But all of these things here are important. I don't know, does the city have its own individual ethics policy? Yes. So one of the reason it's an or there is there is an exception in Amendment 41 that provides that for home rule municipalities that have their own ethics policy, that takes precedence over Amendment 41. The Independent Ethics Commission hasn't always agreed with that, but we have prevailed on that when it comes to the court of legal opinion over time. So again, it's important to read and learn the City of Pueblo's ethics policy. So big picture stuff, the public expects and deserves your best in all of these areas. And I don't need to read them all. This all makes sense, and I hope it does. It's when things get tough that you have to come back to these things. So that leads me into talking about personal conduct, because as a governing body, you are made up of individuals from very different backgrounds with significantly different interests, but all hopefully here in service of the City of Pueblo. So your individual conduct matters towards that goal. You have to embrace your role. Now, this should have arrows that on some of these that go both directions, but if you were previously a resident running for council, now you're on the board, you went from being a resident to an official. You were an outsider, now you're an insider. This is all perspective, of course. This one can go back and forth, majority, minority. Sometimes you may be in the majority, sometimes you may be in the minority. It's important to know when that role changes and what that means. You may have gone to from being a critic, may still be a critic, but you are also in the role of being a representative, and that's tough to wear both of those. And this is the one I know a lot of folks when they're campaigning, there's like one issue that they're really hitting hard, and that is their main issue. If that is whatever that issue was, if that was your only issue, this might be kind of boring, because you may only get the opportunity to work on or vote on something around that issue every now and then. In the meantime, you have a whole bunch of other stuff to consider that's important to someone. So it's important to understand that you have become now an all issues decision maker. When you get that chance to work on your issue, fantastic. But also know that there are a bunch of other issues that you're going to be asked to participate on them, and give them the time and the respect that they deserve. Your conduct individually impacts your effectiveness. If you are always the person walking around with the storm cloud over your head, taking it out on everyone around you, that is infectious in a bad way. If you are overly optimistic and bubbly and joyful all the time, maybe slightly annoying sometimes, but that does have a positive impact on others. It can, even especially when, you know, there are tough times or whatever, being positive and trying to engage in your conduct in a positive way is does have a positive impact on others. No matter what, incivility and divisiveness just has no place in nonpartisan municipal government. It just doesn't. And I've got a couple slides later on civility from an initiative that we had, but I just want to pause here because this is one of the things that is most important to me in whatever time I'm the executive director of the Colorado Municipal League. We do not have a lot of great examples at the state or federal level of officials treating each other nicely. We don't have a lot of great examples of interactions between officials and the public that are just warm and fuzzy. Now, they exist, they do happen. There's a few news reporters out there that have made a living telling good stories. Steve Hartman on CBS News, for example, is a wonderful one. But the message I want to leave you with when it comes to civility or incivility is what you demonstrate here will work its way up, because we just cannot wait for anything to come from above, from Washington, from other state, from the state capitol in Denver, from anywhere else. And local governments, municipal governments have to be the ones to lead us here in Pueblo, here in Colorado, out of that. So please, anything and everything you can do to erase any incivility when you see it, divisiveness in a negative way, consider it consider it part of the process of rebuilding public trust in governance. It just matters. So if you find yourself in these situations, please try to find your way out of them. You are viewed as leaders of the city, and also very important, you are representatives of the city as an employer. The environment in which you provide for employees matters. So think about that. You set the example and the tone for everything that happens for the city of Pueblo. I think I mentioned this. You have actual and perceived powers. People will come to you individually because they think, I'm going to talk to my council member. I'm going to talk to the mayor. They can get something done. Maybe. That may be a perceived power to get something done. As a body, you certainly do. But individually, you may not. And it's important to understand that your conduct matters and how you respond to those requests for help when it may not be something you can actually help with. So no matter what, again, you cannot take off that elected official hat and you have to think like that. Now, here's maybe one of the other highlights I want to leave you with to take away. If there's nothing else on the civility, that's one. This is another one. I've sort of touched on this. Each one of you, Mayor too, you came into this with a set of goals and priorities. I want to get this done during my time on council while I'm mayor. And here's the thing, they're different than everyone else's. No one has an identical set of goals and priorities. And what does that mean? That means it is impossible to reconcile all of that. You are just never going to get your way 100%. It is often the hardest thing for individuals on a governing body, especially a small one. This is a very intimate setting, right? It's easy in the House and the Senate. They can yell at each other across the room and maybe they work together, maybe they don't. But this is different. And if you can at least say, okay, I know what I want to get done. I know there's 6 others and the mayor that want to get their thing done. We're never all going to be able to get everything we want. Well, then what? The then what is understanding, first of all, what your goals are, understanding the goals and priorities of your colleagues, and then ranking or prioritizing them. What are the things that I just cannot compromise? I really want to see this done versus something that, well, okay, maybe there's some wiggle room there. And you have to do that with each other. You have to have those conversations about where you might be willing to compromise, but what you would like to see for that. That is how governance works. And when you can get there as a body, you may still end up on the short end of a vote sometime, but if you maybe got some of what you were looking for, still had to vote no, that's still progress as long as you can ultimately say the city council voted too, right? So just please do everything you can to self-reflect that I am not going to get everything I want, which may be a bummer, but neither is anyone else. So let's see how many wins we can get collectively as a governing body in collaboration with the mayor. And then ultimately, again, back to this, this previous message, it helps establish a singular set of goals and priorities and directions to the people that have to carry out the policy that you establish as a council and with the mayor. So 2 things define you: your patience when you have nothing and your attitude when you have everything. And usually you're going to fall somewhere in between, but understanding where you're at on that. Be patient when you don't have a thing. When you are just on the short end of every vote, you'll get your chance, especially if you're committed to working. But also don't gloat when you're getting more of what you want than someone else. Maybe throw someone a bone sometime. If it's not something that's hard for you to give up, then have that positive collaborative attitude in working with folks. It's important to remember discussion and disagreement are absolutely part of the process. It's going to happen. How you do it is the most important. Disagree without being disagreeable, right? No fisticuffs. I mean, it's not the Taiwan legislature, I know that, but we're seeing more and more of that stuff going on. Thankfully, not in Colorado, but where people are actually getting physical with each other. I mean, what is that? But not even verbal jabs. Don't take shots at each other. And when you have a point to make your point, say it succinctly, leave the filibuster to the U.S. Senate. And it's also important not to argue back and forth with each other. Go through your presiding officer in this situation, the chair, or however you are set up, the council president in the council meeting. So when there is division, and there will be, it happens everywhere, you want to look for ways out of it. If you have established rules of procedures or rules of conduct, commit to those. They get revisited from time to time, and that's okay. Some municipalities will have a retreat to hash out issues, sometimes with a mediator or a facilitator, probably not a mediator, but hopefully a facilitator. And then, and especially for those that are new on council, it's important to ask your colleagues about past agreements. Even if it's a new council and you will do things as a new council, but what worked in the past? And maybe it's something you say, well, it's different now. That's not going to work now. But if there is an opportunity to learn from and build on those successes of the past and how you got there, that's time well spent. Again, the accountability thing, it's challenging to govern with 7 different people. It is a unique experience. And, imagine if you're one of those cities that had 9 or 13, that gets even harder. But one important thing, and some municipalities have this problem, some don't. A lot of times there are outside influences that are asking you to do things, take positions on things, and that may be counter to what is you think is best for, or some of your colleagues think is best for the residents of the city of Pueblo. Just be careful, because giving away that authority to be influenced to an external, you're essentially ceding that authority to folks that are unaccountable and unelected. That happens some places, fortunately not very often. As it relates to personal conduct, this happens in some places too, where someone will say, well, I'm not satisfied with, or maybe I never asked for information from the staff. I'm going to go do my own research, and then come into a council meeting and lay down something, maybe have it passed out and say, well, here's what I found doing my own research. The problem is that you have that information and the others don't. And it creates an imbalance of information, which creates an imbalance of power. Ideally, if there is information that you need, ask for it ahead of time from staff so that everyone gets it at the same time, with enough time to review before you come into a council meeting. Do you trust each other? It's a question, it's a rhetorical question, but hopefully you can trust each other. Even if you don't agree with each other, you have to establish some level of trust with each other, and try to address when if the same split vote is happening. Perpetual split can mean that the power is always going to the tiebreaker, one of 7. So with respect to staff, please don't ever treat staff as the enemy. If you have questions, ask. If you need information, ask, as mentioned. They're here to help you, and they're professionals in their fields. So take advantage of that. And to the greatest extent possible, try not to blindside staff with something new in the middle of a meeting. If it's something that you had an opportunity to get information or ask for information ahead of time. Last little bit here, transparency and public participation. What we all talk about a lot and sometimes struggle with the most. Transparency is a basic expectation. The people that live in Pueblo, many of them take great interest in what's happening. They want to know what's going on with their community. They want to know how problems are going to get solved. They also want to know when they can participate and how they can participate. So lack of transparency or perception of inadequate or ineffective opportunities can create trust and credibility issues with the council as a body and with the public. The most important thing about communicating outside of regular meetings is to just always have in your head, am I talking about public business without the public? And am I doing so in a way that can create a liability issue? And I know that folks are aware of the Colorado Open Meetings Law. We have a great publication on it. I encourage everyone to read it. It's free to download for members. And you can get a printed copy as well. But public business should always be conducted in public. If there are 3 or more council members or officials talking about public business. Full stop. Now, question I get asked, especially when we invite people up to our annual conference or to district meetings, well, there's going to be 5 of us there. Can we do that? Well, of course you can. If you're not discussing public business, you're not creating a violation. A lot of municipalities will still notice that and just say, hey, council members, mayor have been invited to the CML district meeting and may be in attendance. No public business will be conducted, or words to that effect. So setting that aside, if there is any discussion of public business going on, and I would submit, even if it is not 3 or more, save it for a meeting. Because the folks that elected you want to have the opportunity to participate in those discussions. They want to understand your thinking and your rationale. They might want to share their opinions too. So please, please, please do everything you can to maintain that transparency, and that goes to group emails and daisy chain communications and all of that. As it relates to public participation, and some do it differently, but generally the council meeting is an opportunity to receive feedback from residents and then allow for appropriate follow-up. It is not generally debate club where the council is engaging with something or anything or everything that one or more members of the public will give during public comment. It's appropriate for them to raise concerns, be critical, offer suggestions. But generally, unless a municipality has a different way of doing things, and some do, it's appropriate to say, thank you for your feedback. If necessary, an appropriate member of the staff will get back to you on that, or there will be follow-up. If someone comes to the microphone and bashes on staff, says something negative about that, don't chime in. Just let that be handled. Let them say their piece. That's important. Presiding officer is crucial in maintaining order. Again, this culture of civility, it flows from the top down. So if you practice it and also exude it towards members of the public, even if they are calling you every name in the book, then ultimately, someday, people may say I'm a dreamer, but we may see more civility come in interactions, at least in municipalities. I can't say the same for the state or federal government. It's important to maintain formality. Use your titles, insist that people come to the podium, be recognized, things like that. So on participatory democracy, quote I found that I like, we need to, in this country, begin again to raise civil discourse to another level. I mean, we shout and scream and yell and get very little accomplished, but you can disagree very much with the next guy and still be friends and acquaintances. And that's important. Nothing should taint, even if you vehemently disagree with someone's position. It's their position. They might have a reason for it. You might have an opportunity to talk it through and maybe persuasive, maybe not. But it should not be ugly. It should not be a negative experience, even in the toughest of times. And actually, when it is not negative, even in the toughest of times, it allows you to have greater success when things aren't so tough. CML did a civility initiative. That link is still good. This was done in 2024 to try to provide tools and a guide for if it ever comes up and you just need some resources. We are leaving that on our website with these guiding principles. And I think the last one is probably the most important one, sort of that golden rule thing, but be a role model. Model the behavior that you want people to have as well. We followed that up with, and there's a QR code, but the website that was on there works. There's a civility pledge. You can pass a civility resolution. There's also additional resources, and I encourage you to check that out. And we followed that up with the following year with the Back to Basics initiative, which sort of piggybacked on that. but the line here, this is now retired city attorney from Colorado Springs, who was our board president, wrote, "The best municipal leaders aren't the loudest in the room. They're the ones who stay focused, make informed decisions, and never forget who they're serving." So that link is still there as well. That is a picture of the cover of our April magazine. Both April of 2025 and April of 2024 were fully dedicated to a civility initiative and Back to Basics respectively, and they're available on our website if you ever want to go back and thumb through that. We have some other resources, the ethics, liability, and best practices. This is that CIRSA CML joint publication that you have, and we'll be sending some more down. A prior president and former, well, I know he's still a practicing municipal attorney, but sort of working his way towards retirement, wrote a book called Bob's Rules of Order because he found over his years that Robert's Rules of Orders were completely ineffective for municipal government, and had a different approach that many of his client municipalities and others have picked up on. Anyway, we have a hard copy book, and you can order that. And always on our website, there are resources, or just give us a call. Give me a call directly. Email me, kbommer@cml.org, and we will always be ready to respond. The three legs of our stool are advocacy, information, and training. Advocacy is where we usually end up in the newspaper the most, but opportunities like this, the training that we provide, again, hybrid, in-person, and remote, is equally, if not more impactful, because it's intended to help municipal leaders be more effective at your jobs. That is the extent of my presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions, follow up on anything that you have an interest in, or anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bummer, for attending and sharing this very important information. The chair will now open up time for questions. The chair will recognize Councilor Latino.
Kevin, I want to thank you for your guidance and your direction. What you do and what your staff does is unbelievable. And again, the organization, the guidance is very, very important to me. And I've seen that, and in attending your conferences, which are very well orchestrated, that is another thing that has been beneficial to me as a public official. So I want to thank you for taking the time and putting forth the effort to come here to the city of Pueblo, the home of heroes, to work with us. Thank you.
The chair will recognize Councilor Gomez.
Yeah, in your experience in all the years you've been, have you ever had a situation when you've had to bring in an arbitrator? If you have differences with, say, the mayor or the council, have you ever experienced any of that?
Thank you, Councilmember Gomez. The league is a service organization to our members. We have offered, and generally for the more of the retreat type situation, we have offered a list of facilitators, not so much mediators, that many of our members have used or at least consulted or inquired about providing services to. The league itself does not provide that service. It would not be appropriate, much in the same way the league does not provide legal advice to our members, because we are not the counsel to the municipality. So that's an important role. But look, I've been with the league for, like I said, almost 27 years now. And I don't think that there is a thorny problem I've ever seen that can't be solved. And it just takes commitment. And so if it means a facilitated conversation, sometimes that's a good way to do it. But it begins with commitment.
And you have that facilitator list, or is that something we go through CML, or do we find that another way?
Yeah, if requested, I can provide a list of facilitators. Some are affiliated with CML as associate members, but I also have several individuals and firms that are not, that other municipalities have used.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay.
If I might,
seeing-
if I might just close with one thing. I know I ended my presentation.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. You will not get very many people that say thank you. They may say other things, and that's okay. People have the right to express their feelings, but thank you. It is not an easy job. I recognize that. I've worked with a lot of city council members, a lot of mayors over the years, worked with a lot of state legislators, and frankly, you've got a better job. You've got a job that you can see the fruits of your labor most directly. No one signs up for this because they don't care about their community or they have something else that they're interested in. Do it because you care about your community. Certainly not a get-rich-quick scheme. And it's certainly a significant impact on your families, your time, and all that. So I just want to acknowledge that I understand the commitment you've made, what it takes, and I just encourage you to do everything you can to make sure you love and respect each other and the folks that you are serving. So again, thanks and good luck, and please invite me back.
Thank you, Mr. Bummer.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. At this time, the chair will now move the council into an executive session for the purpose of determining positions relative to the matters that may be subject to negotiation, developing strategy for negotiations, and or instructing negotiators under CRS Section 24-6, 402, Section 4E, and for the following additional details are provided for identification. Purpose, instructing CERCSA for the respect to settlement negotiations.
Madam Chair, that has been removed. So
Thank you, Mr. President.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I have, it's me.
Yeah.
I'd like to say just a couple of things, please. First of all, I want to thank the Pueblo Police Department, the Pueblo Fire Department, Station 6. We had a fire on under the 4th Street Bridge this weekend. A homeless ignited fire.
Did you know that this was?
And I want to thank the following police officers. Samuel Hawk, Sergeant Guerrero, and Caleb Johansson, and then Fire Station number 6 for their support and help in putting that fire to rest. I would also like to welcome 2 very strong and prominent investors to our city this evening from out of state, who've contributed greatly to the development of this community on the Central Plaza area and down here on Union. Mr. Eric Eisenberg and Mr. Jacob Eisenberg, who are here with us this evening. Thank you, gentlemen, for what you've done for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Tino. The chair would now like to request a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we move into executive session for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and or instructing negotiators under CRS Section 24-6-402, Parent 4, Parent E, Parent I, and for a conference with the city attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions under CRS Section 24-6-402, Parent 4, Parent B. And the following additional details are provided for identification purposes. Potential litigation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The chair council will move in for executive session for the next hour.
Not now, it was tripping out.